question that you're asking is that they've always been here. The people that are the keepers and the watchers, they've always been here, and the white men call them angels. They call other things throughout the different peoples of the world. But they've always been here. The only thing that they do not do is they don't make themselves visible. The activity has created today because of the turmoil that's happening. You've heard of a lot of paranormal activities that come around, and some of these beings can, especially in the flying saucer group, that they actually can walk through those walls there. I mean, and you've heard so many stories, and the white men call them angels, and the white men call them angels, and the white men call them angels.
Are you an angel?
What?
An angel. I heard the deep space pilots talk about them. They're the most beautiful creatures in the universe. They live on the moons of Viego, I think.
You're a funny little boy.
You and I.
You and I what?
We're the same.
No. I'm stronger.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Who are we?
Gods, angels. Different cultures call us by different names. Now, all of a sudden, it's superhero.
I just want to make one statement why I'm wearing this angel cap. It's a code image for people in the secret program. Those of you out there who know its meaning, you know its meaning.
Now, angels, aliens, I don't know, but when one looks at the recurrence of winged figures in human history, in terms of religion, in terms of culture, mythology, are we looking at something real? Are these angels that we see actually extraterrestrial entities?
We call them gods in Mesopotamia, also in Egypt, and then that morphed into angels. Today we call them extraterrestrials, but it's really the same thing.
There are light and dark forces of some kind, and respecting that is important.
The majority of humans on Earth and throughout history believe that otherworldly beings are actually agents. They're doing things in this world, either directly to us or indirectly, and that they too are experiencing a battle or a struggle, and using us as humans, as agents, as proxies, if you will, to fight this battle.
You know from ancient legend, the books of Enoch, that there was a group of angels that introduced to humanity ways, means, knowledge, which we would understand today as science and technology. These angels were in uniform. They were called in Hebrew Ishi, which means men. They looked just like us.
We have religiousized this understanding. We have developed mythology, a legend around something, and we have not understood it correctly.
Is it possible that there are already aliens living among us, and that our governments are fully aware of this?
Who's guiding them?
People have made contact.
I remember hearing about the Collins Elite the first time, and my reaction was, oh, come on, demons? Really? There are people in the CIA and the Department of Defense and NSA who are worried about demons, and then, you know, after you think about it a while, well, what's the difference? Who knows the ultimate story of where they're from or why they're here? We don't really know.
That's exactly the point. I think that, you know, one man's demon is another man's alien, you know, and it's all the same stuff. I remember I had a really interesting exchange with somebody, and I said, well, would this particular group be the angels of the Bible? And I got one word back, yes. And I said, so the other group would be the demons. Correct. And I said, well, I would imagine they don't like each other very much. Agreed. So it's exactly as Peter says. People are seeing things and creating religions, and so it's like it's hard to go, oh, it's demonic. Oh my God, no, it's just it's one religion talking about this phenomenon, and they labeled it a demon and an angel. But if you go to another religion, they called it something different, but it's all the same thing.
Are they the bad guys because we chose one side? You said earlier tonight we chose sides. Are they demons in our eyes because we chose the other side?
I wouldn't say demons necessarily. I mean, I was told specifically, empire building and resource extraction, but I mean, amongst other things, I'm sure there's a lot going on. I think, that in my view, it gets tricky for me to say something. We should just move on.
All right, let's talk about some of the stuff you were told that you can share. The biggest question, who are they? I mean, I think I said in the introduction that some people in your group refer to them not as aliens or the visitors, they refer to them as the others. Is there significance in using that term?
I don't know the significance of the others. The phenomenon is not used. Aliens is not used. It's the others, and when you're taught, the way it's explained to me is that they are gods, with a little g. So the entire UFO phenomenon is about multiple gods that fight amongst themselves and by design factionalize mankind into different religions to step back and let us fight each other so it has other things that it wants to accomplish, and we don't notice them because we're too involved fighting each other. So, and they know that. So our government knows that. Our government knows that the others are instigating war amongst mankind. But the other issue is that these gods from you got to look back at ancient history and all those stories about gods that came down and did this and that. It's all true. So that's the other thing. You got to, and I'll get into that in the docuseries. There's some of that stuff I don't want to get into tonight, but the government is very aware that this intelligence is pitting different countries against each other based on religion, on purpose, and it's a scary scenario. So it's like it's a multiple front war that we're fighting, because now we have to worry about each other and we have to worry about the others. So that's part of the reason for the secrecy, is not to. We don't want everyone knowing our vulnerabilities, and we don't want everyone knowing the advancements we've made to protect everybody against multiple adversaries.
I wonder if Michael Heiser agrees with me that Elijah, when he went up in that chariot, went to a solid planet which is inhabited by an advanced civilization. Now, I was curious to hear how Michael would, Mr. Heiser would answer, or Dr. Heiser, because he has not advanced us fast enough in the many years that I've been listening to him on this show. I can prove from the scriptures several things. That, first of all, it's true that he did go to an advanced civilization off planet. I can prove something else. I can prove that the seventh angel in the book of Revelation, because he says it himself, the one who gives the last of the seven plagues, he says when John, the writer of the book of Revelation, bows down to worship him, he says, don't do that. And then in chapter 22 of the book of Revelation, that seventh angel says this, and I'm just paraphrasing because I don't have the scripture right in front of me, but he says, don't do it because I am one of your fellow brethren. I am one of the fellow prophets. I am one of those who, how does it put it, value the sayings in this book. What he was saying is giving us the answer to the mystery of the 27th chapter of Matthew, where it talks about many people being resurrected at the time that Jesus was resurrected. Those people are inhabiting other planets. They come here as angels. They are our own ancestors, exactly as Richard C. Hoagland has been telling us for 20 years. So Michael Heiser is a part of the group of I'm sorry to say it, but they're stuck in the mud, Bible-thumping evangelicals who can't even understand the Bible that they worship instead of studying.
Well, and you know, Michael, he is in conflict with the work of the late Zacharias.
Are you familiar at all, Stuart, with the work of Zacharias Sitchin?
Yes, of course.
Now, where does his work come in terms of that planet that comes here, Nibiru? You didn't mention that.
Yes, you see, here's the other thing. That Nibiru, which is also in some cultures called Marduk, this is also an artificial object which has an elliptical orbit in space. It is controlled by another type of reptilian being. It is not the Draco, but it's actually a different species.
The Anunnaki, he said, right?
Yes, and what we learned at Montauk was that group was actually enemies of the Draco, and that they were antagonistic towards each other. Now, interestingly enough, back in 1999, I believe it was in LA Times and possibly also in the New York Times, there was an article stating that a large object NASA had detected passed the orbit of Pluto in an elliptical orbit around our sun, and that we can expect to see that object come closer to the Earth around the year 2003. That was back in 1999. And as usual, when the New World Order government sends out information that they want people to know, they send it out in a little blip like that, and then you never see it again. And that's kind of their legal out that they told you everything.
Today, there seems to be a great confusion about whether the angels that we read about in the Bible were etheric spiritual beings or the physical messengers of the gods. Some attribute them as neither, but as to ETs who were visiting our planet. The ET gods that we're speaking of now are the extraterrestrial visitors with extreme longevity known as the Anunnaki or Anakim. Their visitation to our planet has been largely hidden since the conversion of Rome, yet their arrival on our world and their interactions with us are there in the annals of history, myth, and legend. The past few decades has provided groundbreaking historical information about these beings. Often the Shining Ones or Watchers were world civilizers who came to colonize our planet many thousands of years before our human history began. And because their face was far more radiant than ours, they were known as the Shining Ones. They were also tall and long-lived. As cosmonauts, they had the capacity to fly, and many of their aerial transportation looks quite like those of modern-day UFO accounts. As outlandish as all this seems, their spaceships are depicted in paintings, tapestries, and murals across the world. This does not negate any spirituality aspect of the Shining Ones or Watchers. Accounts of these quote-unquote gods can also be found in Norse, Greek, Roman, Egyptian, Indian, Native American, Chinese, Australian, Mayan, Incan, and Celtic cultures. Always they're described as tall knowledge givers whose countenance shines. In the last 200 years of archaeology, thousands of clay tablets written in cuneiform from the ancient lands of Mesopotamia, predominantly Sumeria, Chaldea, Assyria, and Persia, all tell accounts of interaction with the group known as the Anunnaki. These discoveries may have the power to rock the very foundations of traditional religious theology. We don't full know the extent as they're mostly all locked up, with only a few scholars who decide which ones become released for public consumption. They're mostly all locked up, with only a few scholars who decide which ones become released for public consumption. They were also described as giants, though the height of their fathers is never stipulated. The Bible refers to the Watchers, or Grigori, as evil ones, describing them as the ones who fell from heaven and who couldn't control themselves, being weak for the flesh of women.
You sexy motherfucker.
These Anunnaki are the gods that are linked to what the angels in the Old Testament. That is something all scholars agree on. Whether the Nephilim, fallen angels, or Amorite giants of the Bible are the same as the Anunnaki is hard to say. The Anunnaki may refer to the wider group of Shining Ones who came as Anu, the supreme deity, seemed to govern over the ones who fell. The Watchers or Shining Ones are often depicted as great winged beings who seem to be commissioned by the Anunnaki. The Watchers or Shining Ones are often depicted as great winged beings who seem to be commissioned by the Anunnaki to act as messengers between the gods and men. Whether the Nephilim, fallen angels, or Amorite giants of the Bible are the same as the Anunnaki is hard to say. The Anunnaki may refer to the wider group of Shining Ones who came as Anu, the supreme deity, seemed to govern over the ones who fell. The Watchers, or Shining Ones, are often depicted as great winged beings who seem to be commissioned by the Anunnaki, blurring the line between beings who originated from one or the other. After nearly 40 years of personal research, it's evident that both groups of beings exist.
What a coincidence.
It's evident that both groups of beings exist. Luminous physical beings, or quote, shining ones, end quote, were sent by the Anunnaki gods, those in heaven, to deliver messages to mankind, that is, angels or angelos. These messages were often moral or inspirational, but were usually affiliated with the implementation of law and seen as enhancing or inception of civilization. On the rock carvings of ancient Sumeria, Egypt, South America, and Turkey, mysterious similarities emerge. One such pattern is the use of small satchels by many of the main gods and goddesses from those civilizations. These days, people use small satchels for both fashion and function. But what were the gods using them for? And why did deities worshipped in places far apart in both position and time use them too? The earliest depiction of these satchels of the gods appeared in Mesopotamia, generally considered the birthplace of civilization. Intricate carvings of their deities showed a bearded humanoid with vast wings, an elaborate headdress, long robe, satchel, and even a wristwatch. Travel halfway around the globe to find evidence from the Aztec and Maya civilizations in ancient South America. Here, archaeologists have found depictions of their gods as humanoid with beards and headdresses, and also carrying the exact same small bag. Other gods with bags locations include Tula from the Toltec Empire, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, and even Egypt. These Sumerian gods were said to not only control and guide human civilization, but also to bestow on them great gifts of knowledge and technology. With them, people were able to build massive pyramids and temples all over the world. The Egyptians, Mayans, and other civilizations, whose gods and goddesses looked nearly the same and carried the same bags, would know nothing of Sumerian deities unless they were something more. While these spiritual beings are certainly capable of manifesting a human form when needed, they're not physical beings, nor are they subject to the passions of a physical or emotional body. How can we make sense of all these stories? How can we break down such a complicated topic, which traverse so many epochs and cultures on our globe? Most people start by looking at references to Nephilim in the Bible and the Book of Enoch. Regardless of creed or religion, the container of these accounts, that is, the Bible, is familiar territory, as opposed to mythology or obscure localized cultures. Theories of scholars, philologists, and theologians have all proposed at some point, with so many commonalities, that the Nephilim must be none other than the Anunnaki, or at the very least a subgroup of the Anunnaki. As an avid historian who has deep interaction with both groups in the academic and mystic sense, it's easy to get the two groups mixed. Angels, devas, or watchers are spiritual teachers to oversee the evolution of planets like this one, and to act as guardians for humanity as we awaken over vast periods of time. This is a common theme everywhere on this planet, with respect to angelic beings who honor the free will of human beings and do all things in accordance with divine will. However, adding to this confusion, the conglomeration of different sources is reported by those who have had encounters with both groups, historically, physically, or spiritually. These accounts go back as far to the time of Enoch many thousands of years ago, and if you accept the Anunnaki as Nephilim, then many thousands of years also, to the origins of mankind and recorded history in Sumer. Amazingly, these encounters even made their way into the rabbinical sources like the Zohar, the Old Testament, the Quran, and the Vedas, each holy book that lies at the source of our various religions. This makes it even harder to sort out any mystical encounters with beings from the higher realms or from our encounters with sophisticated space beings. We've avoided the etymology of the word Nephilim until now, or any meaning of the word until you fully understand the complexity of the Nephilim, or Watchers. In the Brown Driver Briggs lexicon, the word Nephilim translates to giants.
Let me simply break it down by saying this. For close to 5 million years, the sons of God have degenerated on this planet. Their souls have come and gone in bodies never opening up to what and who they really were, only from time to time getting a little light into what they potentially were supposed to be. Once they were not able to call on directly the universal cosmic creator, they had to then accept false gods and false teachings by mankind, who was put upon the earth later on by others to keep this Son of God in control. From greatness and grandeur, having the bloodline of the angels, they also had the higher frequency body potential of the angels. But now it was locked in an animal body and could only escape between the hours of 11 and 2 in the morning, when the pineal gland could kick in and they could come out of these false bodies and become what they really were. That's why people who dream in black and white are on the verge of ascending. People who dream in color and remember the dreams and have dreams that come in threes are prophets. And as it moves up again, they can begin to awaken and come outside of your body, look down upon your body, and see that you are more than the body, because you never were human. You were simply encased in human and locked in by the frequency barrier, and you didn't know who you were. Trapped on a planet who you didn't even come from, or only here for a lesson, the lesson has got to go on and on and on infinitum. Well, even the planet is getting tired of that now, and is changing the frequency.
Hello, this is Gosia from Cosmic Agency. How are you doing? Today I'm going to present to you the first video of the 3 videos about Jupiter and about the beings from Jupiter, who are called here on Earth Karistus. And this video was presented already in Spanish in Robert's channel some time ago, because this is the information that was given by Svaru of Erra at the end of 2019 or 2020. So that first video, Jupiter, is quite not old, because the information is still valid, but it was something given before. And then the second video will be about the beings from Jupiter, called On Earth Karistus. And then the third video will be about Dor Kristil, DK. What is that? What is that title, and what is it referring to? So what is this Dor Kristil, and how does it refer to Karistus? Now, before you watch the video, I need to make some clarifications. First of all, this video about Jupiter was given by Svaru of Erra, and it was given from a specific angle. For example, here it is explained that the beings who occupy Jupiter, Karistus, live in a 6th density. But now we know, especially from Yaski herself, that all that talk and categorization into densities is something that doesn't really have the reflection in reality, because the densities do not operate in such a strict way. It's not like there are some barriers and walls between them, and the density is a state of mind, and each one of us can exist in any specific densities. It's fluid. So whatever the civilization will be existing on, it will depend on that civilization's state of consciousness and the state of expansion of their mind. So here it is explained that they are 6D and that they are bioplasmatic energetic beings. But as it will be seen in Karistus video number 2, Aneka explains that they are people. They are flesh. They are made of biological body. They are not. She doesn't see them as bioplasmatic energetic beings. She sees them as people, because they talk sometimes. They are friends. They cooperate. So here, when Svaru of Erra said that those Karistus beings are bioplasmatic energetic beings, she might be just referring to a certain level of a Karistus civilization, because all of us exist in all these different densities. And look at Yaski. She can appear in many different forms. She can be biological, and she can be not so biological. So just keep this in mind, that even though in this video Jupiter, they are explained as bioplasmatic angelical beings, they also exist in a biological form as well. And it will be more understood in the next video about Karistus. So keep this in consideration when you watch this video, and more will be understood in video number 2 about Karistus. I need to go. Thank you very much for watching, and enjoy these videos. Bye bye.
Jupiter, another long story. Notice how invasive the Cabal is, how it takes and dominates everything, using Saturn as Satan, as an emblem of negativity. Why not take Jupiter, the king of the planets, impressive as he is alone? Why? Because it is not theirs. Because they think in duality always, although they give attributes to things, attributes that things in themselves may not have. An example of this is Saturn. Nothing to do with Satan or anything, it is just another planet. But they don't touch Jupiter, because in their minds, thinking in duality, Jupiter is the antithesis of Saturn. white squares and black squares. Jupiter is the white squares, Saturn the black ones. One charged with negativity and the other with positivity. Jupiter is the abode of a race which on Earth is known as Karistus. This is a very heavy subject that even we do not fully understand. The name Karistus is used in Templar, high-ranking Masonic circles, and among other secret organizations, but mostly English, Portuguese, Italian, and German Templars. Karistus is linked to the concept of decay, Dor Christi. Karistus comes from Christic, Christ, positive energy, with Illuminati Templar Masonic point of view. In those circles, it is said that the being Jesus Christ, or DK for the Illuminati Templar Masons, comes from the race Karistus, inhabiting Jupiter and its moons. Karistus are beings of the 6th dimension of high frequency and above. Karistus, terrestrial name given to these beings who have no name, only concept of themselves. They have no names of themselves or race. Inhabit Jupiter and its moons. They look like angels, flying, and are so taken on Earth. Along with Taygeta, both races are conceptualized as angels.
And what do they come to do on Earth?
The best source of information about Karistus is the DSAHK channel. Like any other race, Earth has several thousand starseeds of that race. But yes, they come to Earth in original form too. They come because they are guides, because they see what is happening on Earth. They also want to help. How in original form if they are starseeds? Many times they have been seen as light beings captured on video, angels captured on video flying or landing somewhere. They are as starseeds and in their original form, in a bioplasmic state. The concept of angel, like Taygetans, refers more to biblical archangels, with names and all: Gabriel, Miguel, Raguel, Zadkiel, etc. They come down and talk to humans, or have talked to humans face to face. Karistus is more like you see something strange. You see a being or an angel of light, because they do seem to have wings. And then something good happened, or a disaster was averted. So the concept of angel we share with that race, but as you see, in a different way.
What other races are there on Jupiter?
As I said yesterday, there are also water vapor races, or so it seems. They don't have names as such either, just concepts. Jupiter has no surface like other planets. It just goes from a gaseous state progressively to denser and denser as you go down in the atmosphere. It gets to the point where the pressure is so much that it is denser than magma rock or steel, but all progressively. But there are strata between the gaseous state and the solid state in which strange beings exist as animals. Like fish in water, they spend their whole life from birth to death flying. Some animals are like jellyfish, with the top part being a natural balloon that gives them buoyancy in that atmosphere, and they catch other small beings with their dangling tentacles below. Some can be huge. There are parasites that live inside these beings, and also other species that live among their tentacles, eating the leftovers of what was eaten. There are other flying species like birds or half bird and half tetradactyl that also have to spend 100% of their lives flying incessantly. These species go out to hunt at higher levels of the atmosphere where it is less dense, and come down to denser strata to rest, since the effort of flying is not as great. They are carnivorous and often prey on jellyfish. They have a spur at the back, climb on top of a balloon jellyfish and dive in reverse, piercing the balloon at high speed and killing the animal. Jupiter, as I have said, has no surface and is a gradient from less dense to progressively denser. But having said that, it does have currents within the density strata, as ocean currents also have thermal and salinity barriers beneath the sea, on Earth or any marine planet. These barriers, or strata, are used as buoyancy beds by countless species. These currents, or barriers, can be clearly seen on Jupiter by looking at its colored strata.
And what is that red spot on Jupiter? And what are the hexagons that appear in the north and the south? Is it toroidal in shape?
Yes, it is toroidal. And yes, it is a big storm. Just because they tell the truth once in 1,000 doesn't mean that NASA can be trusted. It is a hurricane. Have you been in Jupiter to experience it? Passing by countless times, watching, never entering Jupiter. There have been Taygeta ships documenting everything there too. Me, just watching it as I pass by. I do not wish to disturb the inhabitants. And back to the Karistus. So, how exactly do the Illuminati know about them?
I mean, on Jupiter, it is impossible to establish bases for the Cabal because of the nature of the planet. We will talk about the moons of Jupiter later.
Going back to Karistus, Jupiter looks full of aerial life from 5D, with traces of what happens in 6D and above. In 6D, Karistus has an entire civilization there, with tall crystal buildings shaped all pointed upwards. Vast constructions. I'm just talking about the planet itself. From another point of view, Jupiter is a portal of positive beings coming from higher densities. But how do they, the Illuminati, know about them? Why do they worship them? If they are bad, and the Karistus are good, generally speaking. They know because Karistus shows up on Earth from time to time, always solving something or averting calamities. For example, the Black Death was stopped after the appearance of several of these beings, as said on Earth in Jesuit Illuminati documents. So they have been given positive attributes of goodness of beings of light. They are the opposite of the concept of Vlash, or Mothman, who bring misfortunes wherever they appear. Duality here is very noticeable. But the Cabal will never tell you about this, about the anti-Mothman. These constructions of theirs in 6th density, you cannot see, can you? You cannot access 6D physically.
Can you see those beautiful crystal cities?
Not directly. To see them, you have to modify the frequency of the ship with the engines. Technological solution. It is easy to do, and it has been done. Yes, I have seen the vast Karistus cities from the air. They are technological too, and recognize a Taygeta ship, and no, we mean no harm. We are their sister explorers, more so as we share the concept of angels. If I tell you how to access the 6D with a ship, I will be giving you warp technology. I only ask because it has been said that the lower density does not contain the higher density, and that is why you cannot see it. But I understand this. Okay, thank you. Sure, Gosha, but you go up in density with your ship, technologically. That is part of the warp. In itself, it is that too. As I said before, it is portal for beings and energy of higher densities.
Was Jupiter once a star?
Jupiter was never a star. Probably never will be. Although it has more attributes of a star than a planet. It is something else though, another category. Jupiter is a very, very high frequency planet. It radiates much more energy than it receives from the sun. Its moons receive that energy in the form of radiation that is translated by them into heat. Jupiter emits that energy like a sun. It reaches them. Suns do not emit heat. That is false. Stars are not thermonuclear bombs, as they say. They are energy portals. It is energy in various forms. including measurable radiation from 3D, but far from being just that. That is translated by the planet into heat. Let's go to the Mojave Desert for the moment. It is almost summer. Temperatures are soaring in the high 40s Celsius and above. But on any given day at midday, with the surface at 42 degrees, the higher you climb in altitude, say in an airplane, the cooler and cooler the outside temperature will become. Even in full sun at 10,000 feet altitude, 3 kilometers, the temperature is already well below zero, below freezing. Solar flares are energetic pulses. The heat comes from the translation of energy received by the sun, not from the sun. The sun cannot radiate heat to the Earth because, from a 3D point of view, space is a vacuum, and the laws of thermodynamics do not allow for heat transfer. No matter how hot a sun is, no heat energy will ever reach the Earth. Okay, the sun burns higher up, like over the Alps. You go skiing and the sun burns your skin. But it burns you not because of heat, because you are freezing. It burns you because of radiation.
That is, the famous solar flare would never reach the Earth.
And what does it radiate? A long list of energy kinds. From what is accepted in 3D as ultraviolet, to white light and infrared, radio waves, to X-rays, and then to high-energy gamma rays. It also transmits other frequencies and energy that humans are unaware of. Energies of other densities, because the sun is in all densities, logically. Those energies from the tachyonic, muonic, and many others that are only known on Earth as cosmic rays or solar wind. It emits energies of frequencies that come from other places, from high densities translated to lower ones. The sun as a repeater of energies coming from the center of the galaxy, which activates the DNA. It can reach because it radiates very strong electromagnetic energy. Yes, it can affect telecommunications, etc. But as the flare that cooks life on the planet, leaving everyone roasted, that is fear, fear, and fear. Just garbage. That will never happen. But let's see, how do they activate the DNA? That is another topic. But yes, it's not that they activate it as in they were it before. They are just transmitted frequencies, and by the principle of the dominant frequency, everything that is under the influence of a higher one will change frequency to match the higher one. The consequence of that is that everything that was on a lower frequency, and therefore on a lower existential plane, will irremediably have to raise its frequency as well. Principle of dominant frequencies. Is it good to expose yourself to the sun? Sure, there is nothing wrong with the sun. You just have to accept that you have certain body limits or tolerances when it comes to radiation exposure. Another day.
Okay, we can move on to Jupiter's satellites.
These are the main moons of Jupiter. They get 99% of their heat from Jupiter or their own geothermal means. The sun takes a back seat to them. They are all in the life-forming stage. This means that they are places that the positive races watch and respect with utmost care because of the prime directive. If places or planets like Mercury or Pluto, and Sun 10, Sun 12, and Sun 13 as well, are planets going downward in decay back to the potential energy, these 4 moons of Jupiter are going upward. They are in formation, with life beginning in them, and with that life, also the moon's consciousness. All from the holographic point of view. The forming consciousnesses of the planet function as neurons of a larger whole, and so on upwards. The inhabitants, plants and animals add up the energetic field of consciousness soup to form a whole, the moon or the planet. Also, human beings are the sum of cells and microorganisms living inside them. The cells of the body are the population. The body is a community, not a unit. So it is the same way with the most basic things to the most complex. It is composed of smaller pieces of consciousness, all interconnected in an energetic field of consciousness. This field is misunderstood, and it is something quite tangible. It is gravity. Gravity is the flow from a point of observation of a consciousness to the observed point, or of concentration.
So there is no advanced life on those moons. The consciousnesses of the moons as living beings are forming? Are there settlements of other races?
Yes, those moons are forming. They are babies. They must be taken care of. They must be given what they need for their development. Mostly respect and patience. There are no settlements, and the negative races are driven away by the guardians of the area, the Karistus. This the Cabal knows, and has filtered into Stanley Kubrick's 1968 film 2001: A Space Odyssey, and even more clearly in 2010 Space Odyssey, Part 2 with Roy Schneider. Look at the final message. All these worlds are yours to explore except Europa. Don't try to land there.
Why Europa?
For the reason I'm telling you. Because it is information. It has life beginning to develop. Nobody has the right to interfere. Just that in those movies, something has failed them. It is not only Europa. Ganymede and Callisto too. However, Europa is special, or stands out among them. It has an ocean inside, under the ice. It is the one in the most advanced development of life state of the four. It contains a Syrian-based civilization of Triton-type beings in primitive pre-industrial stage. It comes from the same name from which Europe was named. It is not Europa in honor of the continent. Europa was the daughter of Tyre, who was one of Zeus' mistresses in Greek mythology.
Okay, it is good to know all of this information because many contactees claim to have visited these moons and seen cities and civilizations.
But who has named the satellite Europa? It would be necessary to investigate who. For us, it is not called that, Europa. It is Sun 1352.
Why Sun if it is a moon?
Sun 13, source solar system. Sun 13.5, source solar system plus planet number 5, Jupiter. Sun 13.52, second moon. Although it is not according to the distance to Jupiter, it doesn't correspond. But that's what it is called.
But another question, Sorio. Are they moons without any settlements of any intelligent race? It's just that some alleged contactees claim to be taken to those moons to meet civilizations living on them.
Sorry to be a party pooper. Answer no. There is no one there with civilization. Only some Syrian-based Tritons, but in a primitive state. These moons are new and information. In a few thousand years, they will have their civilizations, but not yet. There is no one there, not even bases. Only the Karistus, who look after them positively, as well as grey gardeners, for that is their job. Perhaps they confused it with the advanced Karistus civilization on Jupiter. As you have been told, it has no surface. There could be no civilization on Jupiter, and they mistakenly pass it on to their moons. Jupiter does have large buildings and spectacular cities, but not in 5D. They are above 5D, lower 6D specifically. I know what frequency or density because that is what the spacecraft computer tells me when matching the frequency as a necessary procedure to even see these cities. A 3D or 5D zone would only see a gaseous ball full of 5D animals, as described yesterday.
I just have one question to this. Is the Earth also now in 6D? I mean, you see the cities of Jupiter 6D in the same timeline, right?
All places, including Earth, have their points or their lines or their corresponding aspects in all densities. About timelines, yes, they are always different, as they change with densities, as expected. It is difficult to define where one ends and the other begins, because a timeline is basically one that represents a consciousness, But that consciousness is present in multiple densities as well. And aspects of the same consciousness may or may not be perceiving those other densities, although it affects it directly. To this problem is added another one, that we would have to define when a consciousness begins as a unit, because everything is composed of smaller consciousnesses that form a greater one. And that, in the case of a human being, for example, would be each cell of the body, since the human body is a population, not a unit. These individual cellular consciousnesses form the greater, the anthropomorphic person, which in turn forms a community, which forms a planet, which forms, and so on and so forth. As you can see, the variables to consider are many. Originally in English. Karistus are mostly 6D people. As I have said before, whatever is in higher density will have its mirrors and equivalents in all lower densities. They appear with wings because they like to be seen as angels. The concept of angel on earth partially comes from them. I know they are very peculiar in their beliefs. According to Karistus mythology, all Lyrian people, now all over the galaxy, are Karistus hybrids. That means you and I as well. They refer to this from a soul level, not just biology. And from their point of view, I think it can be, or is, perfectly valid. So they interpret what is going on Earth in a different way as how we see the problem. For them, it is simpler. It is simply duality playing out there, and it is two groups of souls competing for Earth at all levels of existence. I underline it because they see that statement as very important. For them, it is a simple fight between Vlash people and hybrids, and Karistus people and hybrids. The Vlash, for them, holds all negative races, reptilian, grey or whatever, and the Karistus are the positive side. They call hybrids what we call starseeds, no less and the same. The Vlash invaded Earth, a Karistus world according to them, as this is their solar system, as they are quite arguably the most advanced race and culture of this entire solar system. So to them, Earth belongs to them. They argue that it is their property. The whole solar system was their turf until invaders came along. Why so much struggle for Earth? Aren't there enough planets out there? It's not about Earth itself. It's about who lives in it. And ultimately, because Earth's consciousness is indeed the result of all those consciousnesses in it. What about reptilians and all that being a human manifestation? Humans would be Karistus as well. Then reptilians and everything negative is a Karistus manifestation. For them, all Lyrian species are variants of Karistus or Karistus hybrids. About everything being the manifestation of a consciousness, and being that there is no negativity, only what a soul makes for itself, manifests according to its thoughts. But wait a second. Apart from Lyrian races, there are thousands of others, non-Lyrians, Andromedans, Syrians, etc. Where did they come from to this solar system, and why don't they have the right to call themselves the owners? The Karistus feel they are the rightful owners because they have been for eons of time, and it's right on their doorstep. All the other races are just, whatever, trespassing? Do all those other races agree with this view? What does the Federation say? I mean, The Federation was constructed to fight those invaders, so they were here too for eons. It was only after all the fights and the time-mat wars, and then even more recently, when countless souls from countless races entered Earth as starseeds, hybrids to Karistus. Although I feel it has always been like that. I don't know what the Federation says about Karistus owning Earth. I doubt they validate that. Because as the Federation goes, or thinks, a place belongs to whoever lives in it. But owning Earth is a Karistus concept, not a Federation concept. So where do the Karistus stand regarding Federation's plans to step up the game level for humans and all? In what way do they intend to help? They don't like it, and they openly say so. And that's why they agree with us and back us up. Do you agree with their statement of ownership of the Earth? No, we do not. But they are positive creatures, so Earth would be in much better hands if they would be the ones taking care of it. But ownership like that does not go with us. I am not sure of what they want to do or doing about the problem. But they are backing us up. They are on our side. And on your side. They watch your videos, and they respect you a lot, so I've been told. Okay, thank you, that's nice to hear. How many in numbers are they? Together with the Alphatans Centauri, they are the most numerous non-human species working here in favor of Earth. Karistus are not Federation. Originally in Spanish.
Karistus claimed the Earth because it used to be theirs, before the arrival of the Lyrians. I'm talking about 200,000 years ago. Another point is that Karistus see the Lyrians as them. That is to say that the Karistus, according to their history, legends, and beliefs, are the origin of the Lyrian race. Therefore they see invasive what the Federation does, being so permissive with what happens on Earth. That is why the Karistus do not agree with the Federation. That is, for the Karistus, all races of human appearance in space are variants of them, or are Karistus themselves. That means that humans are Karistus, Taigetans are Karistus, Svarunians are Karistus, Ingans are Karistus, Antarians are Karistus, and Humits are Karistus. They have very protective ideas. They claim Earth, but not from an invasive angle, but to return Earth to the way it was with them. They dress like Andromedans, very much in long ornaments tunics. It's just that they have very long necks, almond eyes, light, almost white, but I think they also have dark eyes, very slow in paused movements. They cooperate when they want, but are perceived as someone outside as superior to the Federation. They are from 60, but live in all these below 6. In themselves, they are the most advanced civilization and race in the solar system. They see themselves as great mentors. We disagree on some points, but we do not see the case for antagonizing them when it's not like they want Earth for themselves invasively. It is not their style. Rather, they say that if the Earth had remained under their control, none of what is happening now would have happened. And I know they have many starseeds on Earth.
Originally in English. More recent conversation.
We do have the Karistus quite close to us cordially. They are on our side, and not on the Federation side of this mess. Taigeta and Karistus have cooperated throughout the years. And thanks to Karistus, we know that all those meetings in or near Jupiter people on Earth are talking about are false. The Karistus declared to her Queen Alanim that those alleged Federation meetings are a lie, and that they would know about that, and that the Federation would never conduct such kind of meetings on Karistus soil. They also said that they know that certain exopolitics groups are false and under direct CIA control.
Why could it not be done on their soil?
Because Karistus and Federation have ruptured cooperation. They still talk, but the Karistus do not want anything to do with Federation law or Federation interaction, due to bad handling of Earth problems, and because the Federation has been permissive towards races that are against Karistus interests. namely the Vlash and Mater that we call Kingoreptilians and Tall Greys. Karistus have been helping since before Taygeta, perhaps. This problem with the Federation and with the regressive races on Earth, including hybrids, has been going on for thousands of years. Safe to say, Karistus is one of the most active races fighting in favor of humankind.
In what fashion are they active?
Mostly direct confrontation. Like what Taygeta does not do a lot for any longer. I mean, Karistus does get close, dirty, and personal in a shootout, or knife or sword fight against regressive agents or hybrids. But since Alanim came to power and guided by Zvarunians, Taygeta has stopped fighting in that matter. Or only with some localized skirmishes, not as in direct combat.
They do that in their human forms? Or you mean starseeds?
Both direct step-downs and starseeds and hybrids. Karistus is a very noble and well-intended race fighting for humankind. They suffer great loss of Karistus life engaging in this war. Because it is a war, and people should start to realize it is a war, or they will lessen their chances of survival. The problem is that they have been also under the boot and the law of the Federation that lays claim to Earth as under Federation space and control. So Karistus have been fighting legally in kind with Taygeta and Alcyone Council, and Council of Lyra and Avion, Ormus, for that matter as well.
Thank you. I have a bit different question. If they exist on higher than 5D level, I imagine they can't come in through immersion, or can they? They have immersion pods in their density?
This concept is broken, or was broken by Yaski. We were saying that Karistus are 6th density beings. Well, according to Yaski, no. They are at any level like any other race, and only depending on the spiritual and consciousness level of their inhabitants, but without placing them, or any other race, at any numerical density, as that is New Age. So Karistus are Karistus at whatever level they may be, and each one may be at.
Okay, I understand that, but for example then, if you travel to Jupiter, will you see their crystal buildings? Because Zvaru said she needed a special ship frequency adjustment to see them.
Yes, but you need a special frequency to go there anyway, and to Taygeta, and to Elfrada, and to Sindriel, and to Betoya. Also, they do have some kind of energy field protecting and hiding them, but that's not so high-tech.
So what do you see when you look at Jupiter when you are close?
That's the problem. I've never been there. Tolika-class heavy cruisers like the ones I'm always on exit hyperspace between Mars and Earth, so I never get a chance to look at Jupiter close up.
Do Karistus regard as their own only Lyrian races, so not Andromedans, etc.?
No, not Andromedan, as those are another branch entirely. Karistus see and understand the genesis of the Lyrian race in a different way the Federation does, as in coming from the Great Expansion and all that. For Karistus, the genesis is more of a spiritual manifestation, and in that case, they would be more right than the official Federation Great Expansion story.
So all the other starseeds on Earth, who are Syrian, Grey starseeds, etc., would not be theirs.
They see those as variants or hybrids of their own, but only if coming from what we call a Lyrian race. So Syrians perhaps not, as they are more in kin with Andromedans and Arcturian races, as in aquatic and semi-amphibian.
Zvaru said Karistus are bioplasmatic energetic beings.
Yes, that's true, but many races do that when not incarnated, even humans, not just Karistus. And also, look at Yaski. She can be viewed that way too. She claims she can manifest herself as a weasel. Karistus, the ones I know, have bodies like the rest of us. I mean, I've talked to them, and they look, well, Lyrian.
Maybe we are referring to different levels of Karistus.
Well, yes, exactly. But then that applies to any race, levels of existence, and of consciousness. I am describing them my way. So it may differ from how Zvaru 9 described them, but in the end, we're talking about the same beings.